So let me give you a little bio on this registered dietitian, the nutritional advisor for American Vegan Society. He has an article in their latest magazine. So if you have a copy, you want to be sure to read his article. He is a professor at Stockton State University here in New Jersey, for those of you who aren't from Jersey. He's a registered dietitian. He's a public health researcher. He's been a vegan 22 years, but his number one influence or influencer for becoming a vegan, some of you may know her, Christina Perillo. Before I bring him up, I just want to read a poem that I wrote and may tie in with his talk. It's entitled, Won't Eat a Rotten Apple. Won't eat a rotten apple, but you'll eat a dead fish. Discard a black banana, but body parts you'll call a dish. Smother with plant-based gravy, call it delicious. Dead and processed ain't exactly nutritious. Won't kiss a chicken on his head, but eat some chicken parts. And strange examples of delicacy would be brain or tongue or heart. We find it paradoxical. You think eagle eggs bizarre. For one of the weirdest dishes for sure is the eating of caviar. Without further ado, please give a very warm welcome for Anthony Dissen.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for giving me the opportunity to share something that concerns me a little bit in the world of vegan and vegetarian and plant-based nutrition, which is unfortunately a lot of the fear that has started to work its way in that either prevents people from wanting to develop more plant-based diets, or even for people who are already eating more plant-based diets, a tremendous sense of fear or worry that they're somehow not doing it right. And so I just wanted to share a few bits of things here, because in some ways it's very encouraging that there are vegan and vegetarian and plant-based physicians and nurses and speakers, and some who have garnished quite a bit of fame and quite a bit of notoriety in terms of what they offer and the encouragement they've given in terms of the benefits that a more plant-based or vegan diet can offer for health, for environmental health, animal welfare, etc. But in my work as both a dietitian as well as a person who works in public health, I see a lot of people now who are very worried that they are somehow not doing it right, because there has been greater understanding about the role of diet and the role of what we eat for things like heart disease and certain chronic disease risks. And again, it's wonderful that people are more aware of how dietary influences and things of this nature can be such an influential factor in their health. And that can be a wonderful source of empowerment. That can be something that gives us a greater sense of control over the day-to-day factors that can influence our health in other ways. But I've also worked with people who only eat one meal a day because they were told by somebody that they shouldn't eat more than one meal a day. I've been met and worked with people who eat no oil, salt, sugar, or anything else to the point that they don't eat anything because they've been told, well, that's going to cause heart disease, or that's going to cause diabetes, or cause cancer. I have worked with people who have actually harmed themselves and developed things like osteoporosis, osteopenia, because they are so underweight, because they've been made to fear that any weight or any body fat on them is somehow a negative thing. And that worries me because they're not hearing this from random people. They're not even hearing this from unpopular sources. They're hearing this from some of the more prominent vegan and plant-based physicians, researchers, educators, nurses, who I know all are operating under the best of intentions. But in a world where everybody is trying to get clicks and likes and subscribers, and in a world where you've got to sell the next book, and you have to sell your next conference, and you have to sell your next presentation and DVD series, you know, as Stephen Sondheim famously wrote, you got to get a gimmick. The snowball as people are pursuing health, which is a noble and wonderful thing to pursue, but rather than eat based on what feels comfortable, what feels good, what is culturally rooted in my family, what feels delicious, it becomes, I can't eat that, it will give me X disease. I can't eat this, it will cause this problem. I have to look this way. An influencer on Instagram told me I can't eat gluten, I can't eat this, I have to intermittent fast 20 hours a day. And I've never seen in my whole career, and I have been working in this for about 18 years now, I've never seen so much anxiety especially in vegan, vegetarian, and plant-based people, that they could somehow eat the wrong fruit, or the wrong vegetable, or the wrong grain, or the wrong legume, or that nuts are bad, or are they okay? And I've just never seen such an epidemic of this worry before. So what I wanted to share is that any form of a more plant-centered or plant-exclusive kind of way of eating is going to be good. Now, working with a good healthcare team, we could see maybe I need to adjust certain things a little up or a little down based on my unique health needs, based on my unique health history. But our food is not the source, or should not be the source, of a great daily worry. And I only share this because in the last 5-6 years in particular, this is almost exclusively the people who I still occasionally work with for counseling and consultation when it comes is, I was told I have to eat a salad as big as my head every day before I can eat any other food. And yes, that is a thing I've heard from many people many times, from one of the more prominent plant-based voices that are in the world, telling people not to eat anything until they've done that. I have spoken and worked with people who have said that they do not eat with a single family member or friend anymore because they will not eat food that is completely devoid of oil. And they were told that it will absolutely eradicate their heart if they eat even a drop of oil, so they avoid those people in their lives now. And it breaks my heart because it doesn't need to be that way. And food should be a tremendous source of joy. It should be like what we're doing here. It should be a source of community and communion and fellowship. It is a way that we connect to our culture and our history. And while our food is important, I have based my career in talking to people about the importance of food. It is not the only factor when it comes to health. And nor is it there's not only one way in order to eat healthfully. And so as we are all going through a world that is quickly becoming more and more digital, more based in influencer messages and more based on these sorts of things, and more based on a need for sensational information to garnish controversy and to garnish headlines and to keep people interested, as much as any of us can do to avoid that unnecessary worry. And to work with competent, if we need, healthcare professionals in our lives, vegan or not, the ones that are willing to have conversations with us and hear and speak, because I've seen just as many closed-minded vegan healthcare providers as I have seen non-vegan ones. And so we are not necessarily immune to that kind of absolutism that can get in the way of something that begins to approach what we might call truth. Because healthcare and science is messy, it is imperfect. We never are certain of anything, which is why for anybody here who now or in the past has worked in anything related to healthcare or science or research, you know that everything that has ever been studied ends with may lead to, may contribute to, may help, right? We're always questioning, we're always uncertain because we're never really impressed by one study. We want to know what 10,000 or 20,000 studies show that might start to bring us in the direction of something that might be helpful. And what's really exciting is that we have that preponderance of research right now that shows that plant-centered diets, plant-heavy diets, do seem to be very protective against so many chronic health issues, can be so protective against so many even certain acute health issues, that eating a more vegan, vegetarian, or plant-based diet can afford these wonderful health benefits. But as I was speaking to someone before at lunch, I am now seeing a lot of sadness in people who do the thing, and they eat the food, and they do the yoga, and they run the marathon, and they do all the things they were told to do, and they're still diabetic. As many people are and will be, even with wonderful lifestyle choices, who are still dealing with heart disease and high cholesterol, and they feel that it's something wrong with them because they feel that they were told, no, if you do this, you will absolutely reverse your heart disease. If you do this, you will absolutely cure this health condition. If you do this, you will absolutely have a change in body weight range, or whatever it is the promise is. And unfortunately, that is rarely the case. And yes, there are many people who make quite dramatic lifestyle changes and have very dramatic changes in their state of health, bless you. And there are people who have made equally dramatic lifestyle change and had wonderful benefits to their health, but maybe not to that level they were hoping for, and they see it as a personal failure. And that should never be the case. Health is complicated. Health is very multifactorial. There's never just one thing we can look at. So when we are hearing some of these messages, the ones that are encouraging, the ones that give us good foundation to stand under, to know what might bring us towards better and better health, Wonderful, that's fantastic. But anybody, even if they are vegan or vegetarian or plant-based, no matter how many letters a person has after their name, if they are giving you a message of absolutism, if they're giving you a message of this is the only way, if they're giving you a message of guarantees, if you do this, it will absolutely lead to that, you might hold a little bit more of a cautious ear to that message and a bit more critical, because rarely over the course of history have anything, especially in health and sciences and research, ever been an absolute guarantee of any kind. So if you have noticed this for yourself and been a little concerned about, should I eat that food? What's the sugar content? What's the salt content? We all make decisions based on what our health needs are, but our food should never be a source of guilt. It should never be a source of fear. There is no such thing as good foods and bad foods. We want to try to liberate ourselves as much as possible from seeing things in this approved and disapproved kind of way. Eating a more vegan diet, either mostly or exclusively, does so much for our bodies and for the environment and for animal welfare and for so many other things. That should be celebrated in of itself. And the fact that it can also help to increase the risk of health and decrease the risk of certain diseases is a beautiful and wonderful thing. But anyone that's making any of us feel that this is the only way, that to deviate from a certain program is going to lead to disease or going to lead to bad outcomes, we might wonder what conflicts of interest might be at the core of that, or what biases they may be operating under. Because again, people have supplement lines to sell, and they have programs to sell, and books to sell, and even some of the more previously unadulterated kind of speakers and voices in the community over the last even just 5 years, I've noticed more and more are starting to fall into the, well, here are my energy bars, and here are my this, and here's my smoothie mix, and all these different things, and it just starts to cloud the message a bit. So for you, if the thoughts about what you eat, especially when it comes to plant-based or vegan foods, is something that you are considering for their health benefits, that's a wonderful thing. And again, there is so much to support that. But don't let anyone make you feel guilty. Don't let anyone make you feel like you have to turn your back on your culture or your family, your friends, or anybody else, the way you know how to cook or the way you know how to or like to prepare food. There's always ways to help make sure that our lifestyle choices are supporting our health, but that emphasis is support. Our lifestyle choices should never be something that we feel is something to be embarrassed by or to be ashamed of, or something that could be actively harming us in this very dramatic way. We want our food to remain a source of happiness, a source of joy, a source of something that makes us proud to be choosing the kinds of foods that we're eating, and to not let other worries kind of cloud the greater message at hand. So be critical. It's always good to be critical, even of the people who are most passionate in the way they speak. We always want to make sure we're taking things with that grain of salt, not allowing anything to be seen as this must be the absolute truth, because that allows us to be more conscious, more well-informed, and able to protect ourselves from messages that might even be harmful. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share some of this information with you all today, and thank you for being here. Thank you. So the question was, I had said there's no such thing as good food or bad food. Can I clarify that? And the reason I said that is because there are foods that have started to, and this is by no means anything new, this is something that's probably been, especially in the last 100 or so years in particular, gaining more and more momentum of the idea of, you know, these foods are okay, but these foods are not okay. These are healthy, these are unhealthy. And the reason why I said there's nothing that can be seen as absolutely good or absolutely bad is any food in excess can be problematic. Kale can be bad in excess. Water is bad in excess. Too much fiber is bad in excess. And yes, excessive amounts of sodium or other kinds of things can be problematic. The reason why, unfortunately, I think this has been taken to a degree a bit too far is because food for a great period of time was seen as having no influence on health. But then starting maybe about 100 or so years ago, the recognition of, oh, there are these things in food that now we call nutrients that have been identified to understand, like, oh, this increases or decreases the risk of scurvy. Vitamin C is discovered. This seems to increase or decrease the risk of things like beriberi or pellagra, or these diseases we don't even think about anymore because they've been cured through public health measures to make sure people get enough thiamine and other B vitamins. But that shifted this medical understanding of food as, oh, there's stuff in this food that influences our health more than just giving us enough calories to feel full and to have enough energy to do our work. And so as we started to understand different minerals and vitamins and macronutrients and all these parts of food, we started to see, okay, people who eat quite a lot of certain nutrients have higher rates of, let's say, high blood pressure or high blood cholesterol. But in public health, this is called what's called the ecological fallacy, which is the idea that you can take what's true in the population and apply it to the individual. So in other words, you can't tell me my risk of heart disease just by looking at how much saturated fat I eat. But if you look at 10,000 people like me, and we see how much saturated fat I eat, we know that the people who eat the most are probably going to have a bit of a higher rate of high cholesterol and maybe heart disease than those who eat a bit less. So the way that this ideally would have been disseminated is encouraging and helping people to select foods that have a little bit lower saturated fat is going to help a certain percentage of the population have lower rates of heart disease. But because we, again, like to be a bit absolute, this turned into saturated fat is bad. And if you eat any, it's going to kill you and cause heart disease. Sodium. Sodium is necessary for life. We can't function without it. We know population-wise, you look at 100,000 people, people that eat a little bit more sodium tend to have potentially higher rates of high blood pressure. So this turns into you can't eat salt. Throw your salt shaker away. Can't cook with any salt. We need salt substitutes. And so then it creates this fear. And so if I eat a food like that, cheesecake, there's different nutrients in there compared to if I had eaten just a plate of strawberries. But that doesn't mean that eating that piece of cheesecake is bad for me, because no one food is going to be good or bad. No one daily choice could predict my health in a positive way or negative way. Now, if I never eat strawberries and I never eat oats and I never eat other kinds of foods and all I'm eating is cheesecake and other foods, I could still live a very long and healthy life, but we know through research that my risk factors for certain health conditions might start to creep up a bit because of what we know at the population level.
Gummy bears all day.
All day, every day, nothing but gummy bears. May not have the best health outlook I could. But it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with gummy bears, right? It just means that as long as I am eating a diversity of foods and I'm not having certain foods, in this case, let's say very processed foods, be the corner of my diet, I am going to be doing amazing things for myself. But if I think that one gummy bear is bad, and there are many of us that operate with, I can't, it has sugar in it, I can't, it has salt in it, I can't, it has oil in it, I can't, it has caffeine in it, it starts to turn into this idea of this is an absolute always good or an absolute always bad. So that's why the more we can kind of minimize that categorization of food and just see it as what patterns, what overall habits each day seem to bring us closer to health or maybe not so close to health, can be a bit of a more liberated and a less fearful way of looking at our food choices. Excellent question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, please. So my thoughts on the number of very highly processed vegan foods that have entered the market. My thoughts on them is that if the goal of vegan foods or vegan ways of eating is to remove ourselves from animal-centered foods and animal-centered agriculture, they're doing their job, right? If I can say this burger tastes so close to what a burger made from beef tastes like that I don't need the beef burger. Even things that are changing like lab-grown meat, which is going to cause all sorts of opinions and thoughts and debates, but the fact that, well, what if I want to eat beef, but this beef never came from a cow that was raised, slaughtered, that produced excrement or anything else? That, if at the core of veganism is the idea of liberating ourselves from animal-based agriculture and animal-based suffering, then they're doing their job, and they're actually doing their job quite well. If we also want to talk about the health impact of them, again, we can look at that and say, do we still want a diet, though, that's still, a little more fruit, a little more veggie, grains, beans, legumes, nuts, seeds, etc., not be, oh, great, it's all my vegan drumsticks and all my, vegan other things? Certainly. But I don't want the health aspect of it to detract from, these are foods that are helping people to eat less and less dairy, less and less meat and poultry and other foods year by year. If anybody here has ever had the Just Egg, which is a liquid egg substitute, it is so close to almost being indistinguishable from scrambled egg that probably give that company another 5-10 years, it will be completely indistinguishable. And that's going to be the least of our advancements when it comes in this area. So we can still talk to people about health and say, you know, maybe not every meal is centered on these foods, but if the goal is how can we get less and less animal food in our diets and how can we get more and more people to be excited to remove animal foods, then I think they do a really good job at that. Thank you. Yes. Yes.
I get frustrated when I hear that term, that word seems. This seems to protect. Because there's been so much research around eating a plant-centered diet that can protect people against, diabetes and heart disease, and it being the only diet that's ever been proven to reverse heart disease, that we're still using the word it seems to help with these situations. I know you said nothing's really sure, but at a certain point, we have to, draw the line and say, this diet does help people, blah, blah, blah.
Sure. No, and again, the idea of the whole notion of seems, are we kind of hemming and hawing too much if we have research that shows that these things do be beneficial? And I know this is a very large topic, but a lot of the research that certain, especially plant-based physicians and vegan physicians and others encourage, is not always being designed and conducted in, let's say, the best possible way. And so there are certain studies that have shown reversal of heart disease in people that have eaten very low-fat, plant-centered diets, coupled with tobacco cessation and exercise, stress management, and psycho-emotional support. That is very exciting and very encouraging, and I mean, there are certain versions of this that are even covered by Medicare because it's been shown to be so effective. The issue with this is because there are not robust studies done in hundreds of thousands of people. Some of these studies are on as few as 8 or 10 or 12 people, which is provocative and is very interesting and is very encouraging to say there might be something here and there might be something to show that this can be more effective. But part of the reason why medical research is so slow is because we have to pinpoint out all these factors. This is where better and better research, and this is starting to be done, which is encouraging, but it takes time, it takes money. We need to follow people not for just 5 years, we need to follow people for 25 years to really see, is there a statistically significant difference in those who are doing this version from another version? And so it takes time, and we may, again, in another decade, have even that much more research to support it. What worries me, and the reason why I'm so cautious about it, is I have known, personally, people that were told by their plant-based cardiologist, throw your medicine away, you don't need it, you're on a plant-based diet, and then they had a heart attack. Don't need that stent, you're on a plant-based diet, it'll reverse your heart disease. They had a widowmaker, didn't know about it, had a heart attack. I know one person in particular who had a major AFib attack because he was told by his cardiologist, you don't need it, you're on a plant-based diet, you'll be fine, had a major AFib attack. So this is where, again, that idea of it's not to say that telling people eating more plant-centered and vegan, vegetarian diets isn't helpful, but it still needs to be monitored, still needs to be done appropriately, and not, again, given this aura of this will absolutely cure your heart disease, because there are many people who have had their heart disease reversed, which is exciting, and there are just as many people who still need medical intervention, who still need stents or coronary bypass or other things, still need lower cholesterol medications, because even with their lifestyle change, it won't be quite enough. But if they are told, nope, this will take care of everything, they can get themselves into some trouble. So the seams is not to be annoying, and it is not to get in the way of telling people helpful information, but it is just still to make sure that I am an individual, you're an individual with unique health needs, unique physiology that still needs to be monitored. And some people can eat that way and have total clearing of their arteries. Other people can eat the exact same diet and their arteries stay clogged and they need some other interventions. And so it's just to make sure people are working with a competent, communicative healthcare team, getting individualized care so that, yes, with dietary change, they can see to what effect it helps. and then also making sure that they're still getting other medical care as needed. The question was, who's good to follow? Who's got some good information? So one person I really like as an account, as just overall person, is Dr. David Katz. He is a physician and researcher at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. He does a very good job of sharing lots of information, lots of research, as unbiased as any of us can ever be, but is based on the most recent information that we have, both in terms of health for the individual as well as environmental health as well. So David Katz is somebody that I really highly recommend. As far as a second one, I would say, in general, when it comes to food, following vegan accounts of any kind that are purely about how to make this food delicious and interesting, and as opposed to ones that are trying to give a particular kind of dietary doctrine. So I would say just in general, if you're interested in how to prepare delicious plant-based or vegan foods, follow those accounts that are purely just the food. If they start to bring in a lot of nutrition information, it's not that that can't be good, just be, again, a little extra critical of, are they telling you that you can't use this, can't use this, can't use this, this will... So I typically refer to people to say, if you're just trying to learn how to cook or prepare food that are plant-based or vegan and delicious, follow accounts that are just the culinary side of things. I will say that there is a dietitian I really think, again, gives a lot of really good information. Her name is Shireen Chu. And she does quite a lot of work in what's known as culinary medicine, which is the application of culinary arts, cooking, and health. So that it is, yes, talking about health, but it is also talking about health in a way that is just promoting health in general through good eating and cooking more and preparing these foods, often heavily plant-based. I believe her Instagram account, if I remember correctly, I'm sorry, Shireen, is Eat Sustainable. So something to that effect will get you to her. But again, also David Katz, I would say, would be a really great person to see just the kind of research and information that's coming out. Mine is very boring. It's just my name, Anthony Dissen, RD. So I got to get something much more creative than that. But thank you very much, everybody. Keep asking questions. Have enjoyed the day. Be well. Thank you. It's such a pleasure to meet you.
You too.